At my mother's funeral, the world was a blur of black suits and hushed condolences. I stood there, a hollow shell, trying to process the finality of her absence. The scent of lily, her favorite flower, hung heavy in the air, a scent I used to love, but now it felt suffocating. My husband Mark was by my side, or at least his body was. His hand was a cold, distant weight on my back. I thought he was my rock, the one person I could lean on in this shattering moment. I was so wrong. As the last of the mourners drifted away, leaving me alone with my grief under the gray sky, Mark turned to me. His face was a mask I couldn't read. There were no comforting words, no gentle embrace. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He thrust it into my hands. "I think it's best we do this now," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. No point in dragging it out. I stared at the envelope, my fingers numb. The official-looking text blurred through my tears. Divorce papers. He was serving me divorce papers. At my mother's funeral. The cruelty of it was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I couldn't speak, couldn't even form a coherent thought. It was a level of coldness I never knew a human being could possess, let alone the man I had shared my life with for 10 years. Why? The word was a choked whisper. I needed to understand. What had I done to deserve this? He shrugged, a casual, dismissive gesture that twisted the knife in my heart. "It's not working, Sarah. Hasn't been for a while. With your mom gone, you're going to be a mess. I don't have the energy for that." He looked at his watch. "I've packed my things. My lawyer will be in touch with yours." And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing by my mother's fresh grave with the ruins of my marriage in my hands. The days that followed were a thick fog of pain. I was grieving 2 losses at once: my mother, the anchor of my life, and my husband, the man I thought was my partner. The house felt cavernously empty. Every corner held a memory, now tainted by betrayal. I'd find one of my mom's old teacups and burst into tears. Then I'd see Mark's favorite armchair empty, and a wave of pure hot anger would wash over me. His words echoed in my head. "You're going to be a mess." He had seen my deepest vulnerability as an inconvenience, a burden to be discarded. He didn't just leave me. He abandoned me at my lowest point, kicking me when I was already down. The man who had vowed to be there in sickness and in health had decided my grief was too much work. For weeks, I barely functioned. My sister Clara moved in, forcing me to eat, making sure I showered. She was furious, a protective lioness. "He's a monster, Sarah," she'd say, her voice shaking with rage. "A spineless coward." She handled the initial calls with a lawyer, shielding me from the brutal logistics of dismantling a life. One afternoon, while sorting through my mom's belongings, I found her old journals. She had filled dozens of them over the years. I hesitated, feeling like I was intruding, but a stronger pull urged me to open one. The pages were filled with her elegant script, detailing her life, her hopes, her struggles. She wrote about her own heartbreaks, her moments of doubt, and how she always found the strength to pull herself back up. Reading her words felt like a conversation across time. She wrote about losing her own mother and the profound loneliness that followed. But then she wrote about planting a garden, how tending to new life helped her heal. She wrote about starting a small book club, reconnecting with friends, and finding joy in simple things. She never let hardship define her. She always found a way to bloom again. A spark ignited within me. My mother was a fighter. She had faced so much with grace and resilience. And I was her daughter. Mark's parting shot was meant to break me, to affirm his narrative that I was weak and capable without him. He expected me to crumble. I decided, right then and there, that I would not give him the satisfaction. The first step was hiring the best divorce lawyer I could find. A woman named Evelyn, who was known for being sharp, relentless, and fair. When I told her my story, her expression hardened. "Don't you worry," she said, her voice firm. "We are not going to let him get away with this. The timing of his..." action is not just cruel, it's telling. Evelyn was a godsend. She took charge, uncovering things I never would have known. It turned out Mark had been planning this for months. He had been quietly moving assets, hiding money in offshore accounts. The reason he chose that specific moment to serve me was a calculated move. He thought my grief would render me incapable of fighting back, that I would just sign whatever he put in front of me to make the pain stop. He underestimated me. He underestimated the fire I inherited from my mother. Fueled by a new sense of purpose, I threw myself into the process. I went through years of financial records, bank statements, and credit card bills. It was grueling, and every discovery of his deceit was a fresh wound. But with each piece of evidence, I felt stronger. I wasn't just a grieving widow and a jilted wife anymore. I was a woman taking back her power. I started reclaiming my life, one small step at a time. I took my mom's advice from her journal and started a small container garden on my balcony. Tending to the plants, seeing them grow, grounded me. I reconnected with old friends who rallied around me, reminding me who I was outside of my marriage. We had dinners, went for long walks, and laughed. Real, genuine laughter that felt like sunshine after a long winter. One evening, my friend Amy asked, "Have you heard from him?" "Only through his lawyer," I replied, sipping my tea. "He's fighting every single thing. He claims he's nearly bankrupt." Amy snorted. "The man who wore a new designer watch every 6 months?" Right. Her disbelief mirrored my own, but it was validating to hear. I wasn't crazy. His cruelty was real, and so was his greed. The legal battle was long and emotionally draining. There were days when I wanted to give up, to just let him have it all so I could be free of him. But then I would look at a picture of my mom, or read a passage from her journal, and I'd find my resolve again. I was fighting for my future, a future he tried to steal from me. The day of the final court settlement was surreal. Mark was there, looking thin and stressed. The confident, callous man from the funeral was gone, replaced by someone who looked haunted. He refused to make eye contact. As the judge read out the final division of assets, based on the extensive evidence Evelyn and I had compiled, a quiet calm washed over me. The judge awarded me the house, free and clear, and a significant portion of the assets Mark had tried to hide. It wasn't about the money, it was about justice. It was a validation of the pain and betrayal he had inflicted. The court had seen his actions for what they were, a calculated, cruel attempt to exploit a tragedy for his own financial gain. After it was over, I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright sunlight. I felt lighter than I had in a year. I saw Mark shuffling out behind me, looking defeated. For a moment, our eyes met across the courthouse steps. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, regret, maybe, or just the shock of being held accountable. I didn't feel anger or even sadness anymore. I just felt nothing. He was a stranger. Driving home, I didn't cry. I rolled down the windows and let the wind whip through my hair. I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't realized I was missing. That night, Clara and my friends came over. We didn't talk about Mark or the court case. We ordered pizza, played music, and danced around the living room. My living room, my house, my life. In the weeks that followed, I started truly living again. I painted the bedroom a bright, cheerful yellow. I enrolled in a pottery class, something I'd always wanted to do. I found joy in the messy, imperfect process of creating something new with my own hands. I even started volunteering at the local animal shelter, surrounded by the unconditional love of creatures who had also been abandoned, but were full of hope. One day, while walking in the park, I saw a young couple arguing. The man said something sharp, and the woman flinched. It was a small moment, but it took me back. It reminded me of the subtle ways Mark had chipped away at my confidence over the years, the little dismissals and casual cruelties I had normalized. I realized his final act at the funeral wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of his character. I had been blind to it, but now I saw it clearly. Leaving me wasn't about my grief being a burden. It was about him being incapable of true partnership, of empathy, of love. My mother's passing was the most painful experience of my life, but in a strange, unexpected way, it set me free. It ripped away the veil and showed me the truth of my marriage. And her memory, her strength passed down through her words, gave me the courage to not just survive, but to build a new life, a better life, on my own terms. Today, my life is full. It's not the life I planned, but it's mine. My garden flourishes. My friendships are deep and true. I'm strong, I'm independent, and I'm happy. Sometimes, I think about Mark and what he did. I don't forgive him, not really. Forgiveness is a complex thing. But I am no longer defined by his actions. He tried to bury me, but he didn't know I was a seed. And just like the flowers in my mother's garden, I bloomed. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever faced a moment that felt like the end, remember that you have a strength inside you that you might not even recognize yet. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and finding your way back to the light.